this year we're kind of doing the whole cycle of catching the vision and then figuring how we're going to put that into practice or allow it to put us into practice is a bit more accurate. And then we just keep doing that a little more deeply each time. And so today's talk title is Free Your Mind. Anybody else here en vogue every time I say that? It's like I've been working on this talk for a while, and every time I read the talk title, my brain goes, free your mind, the rest will follow. Let me just date myself. And actually, I invite you to look up the lyrics to that song. It actually fits pretty well with the topic. Here's the thing. Before we can free our minds, first let's play with what do we even mean by mind? What do we mean by mind? Because if you look it up, if you consult the gospel according to Google, there's an ongoing conversation about whether or not, it's the chicken or the egg. Did the brain create mind, or did the mind create the brain? Because scientifically, they're looking at mind as the production or awareness of thought. In New Thought, we're looking at mind with the capital M, meaning consciousness itself. Now, it gets tricky in New Thought because we use words in multiple ways, much like the English language does. That's not new to us. But we use our mind to be aware of mind, right? And that's where it gets a little confusing. Consciousness. I love the word consciousness, and sometimes it just becomes comical, that I can be physiologically conscious that I am a conscious being made from consciousness, but only if I'm conscious of the consciousness through my consciousness. Right? It's like, what? So when we're talking about mind this morning, we're talking about mind as in creation, as in consciousness, as in source. And we're talking about it in terms of our mental awareness. Because to free mind, we have to free our use of it, which is our awareness. The other thing I want to bring up for your consideration before I launch into too much of the talk is this idea of human nature. Do humans even have a nature? Think about it. Nature, when I look it up, is untouched by humanity. So how is it that we have a human nature? How is it that humanity is a state of condition, physical condition, and nature is untouched by condition? So how do we actually have a human nature? I don't think we do. I think we default to that because that's what we've been trained to believe, is that the generational conditioning of humanity is actually our nature. It is a limitation that we have bought into. And perhaps we're way more than this idea of human nature. Perhaps our nature is actually divinity, and our holding on to the belief that we have a human nature is the very thing that gets in the way of us experiencing our divine nature. Perhaps that is the greatest thing we need to free our minds from. Viktor Frankl, I knew it was in there. Viktor Frankl, one of the greatest things that he ever said was the most effective, the most efficient prison is the one that we don't know we're in. because we make no attempt to escape it. Human nature, I think, is one of those prisons. That we simply live this unquestioned experience of human nature because we don't ever consider that it's a prison of limitation that we don't have to settle for. Perhaps, while you're digesting that, I want to read what Ernest Holmes says. You have not been left alone here to fight a losing battle or contend against powers of evil. You have been left alone to discover your real nature, that as an individual you may consciously unite with the law of life and the presence of good. Just keep right on knocking at the door of your consciousness until every no becomes a yes, every negation an affirmation, every fear a faith. You cannot fail if you remain steadfast. Finally, the fetters of bondage will drop from you. You will walk out of your self-imposed prison only to discover that the door was never really locked and the windows were not actually barred. You were bound merely by the chains of unbelief. And that is on page 40 of this thing called you. And so what if the things that are keeping us tethered really have no power, have no more power than that flimsy plastic chair that was very effectively keeping that horse in place? Because let's be real, if the horse wanted to move, it could very easily move. And in its movement, would eventually shake that chair loose from its reins. And so perhaps the invitation is for us to move, for us to move in consciousness, right? But how the heck do we do that? How do we do that when everything I think feels normal, right? I've thought it my entire life because I was taught to think it. In some circles, that's called karma. We misunderstand karma. If you talk to those people that practice some of the karmic disciplines, they will tell you karma is not about some spirit in the ethers paying you back for something you messed up. We made that up. Right? Karma is the tendencies that we have learned generation to generation being passed on as if they're the truth. Right? And so we have these karmic patterns that we engage in. I was recently watching a whole set of documentaries about the history of the United States. And it was phenomenal to watch the brilliance of creation move through the imagination of these people that discovered oil and discovered how to use it and then discovered how to move it from one location to the other and how to refine it and on and on and on. That figured out how to build a train and how to build the train track and how to do all of that. And then to watch where they took it, to greed, to power. It was not about the magnificence of creation. Once they had the idea, right? Once they had the things that actually advanced us, then the game, and it literally became a game if you watch how these guys negotiated It became a game to manipulate, to see who could establish the most power based on who had the most money and controlled the most stuff. It's not about that. It's about the creative process. It is about tapping in to the imagination. There are things that we have yet to imagine, that our souls just want to experience, and the only thing stopping us is us. And mostly what's stopping us is this notion that somebody else is smarter, somebody else is wiser, somebody else is better equipped to imagine the brilliance that is in you waiting to be noticed. Nobody else can do you but you. Whatever ideas the divine is wanting to express as you are yours. This lie that you don't have what it takes to make them happen, that's a lie. Because every one of us is fully equipped with the infinite of creation itself. Right? We already have everything we could possibly need to manifest who we came here to be, but we keep believing the lie that we don't. If I had my Science of Mind book here, we'd go to, I think it's page 35, where it talks in a little bit of a circle, where he talks about how if you believe Science of Mind doesn't work, you actually prove that it does work by believing that it doesn't work. Right? Because our thoughts are manifested. And so if you believe it doesn't work, guess what? In your life, not going to work. Does that prove that it works? Pretty sure it does. Right? So here's the thing. If we can prove that it does work by not working it, all we have to change is how we're using it. Step from impossibility into possibility. Begin to play in the imagination. Begin with just, I wonder if. Start where you are. Okay? There's this great quote by Patricia Diane Cota-Robles, the author of Raising Consciousness, The Shift from Separation to Oneness. She says this: trying to change physical conditions without changing my consciousness is like trying to change the reflection in the mirror without changing the object causing the reflection. We have to change what we're telling ourselves. Now, here's the trick, and I've tried this. You can tell yourself whatever you want, but if you don't deal with the belief that's arguing back of what you're telling yourself, what you're actually going to continue to manifest is the hidden belief. That's why we call them hidden beliefs. Okay? They are operating so efficiently. How do you know what your hidden beliefs are? It's so easy and yet so distressing. Want to know what you believe? Look at your life. Look at your life. Because our thoughts, our beliefs show up in the form of our life. And so if things are showing up in your life that you go, ew, where did that come from? Well, the good news and the bad news is it came from your consciousness, your use of consciousness. Now, let me be really clear. That does not talk, I'm not talking about physical natural law. I'm not talking about hurricanes and tornadoes. Weather is weather. Weather is a function of natural law. I'm not talking about other people's behavior. Except if you continue to subject yourself to someone's behavior that you don't want to be subjected to, at some point you got to ask yourself, if you don't want a haircut, why do you keep going to the barbershop? Right? Because we do that, right? We go to the we go to the barbershop, we get a haircut, and then we gripe that somebody cut our hair. We have experiences in relationship. And then we blame the person we're in relationship with as if somehow we have no power to walk away. If you don't like the relationship you're in, either change the relationship, accept it as it is, or get out. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. And each of those requires us to change our thought. I was having a conversation with some fellow ministers the other day, and we were talking about how it seems that people relate to this idea of changing consciousness as if they can not do it, right? As if there's a place where you can just be completely divorced from the law of manifesting what you believe. You cannot. You cannot. That's like, and what came out of my mouth that we all cracked up about, that's kind of like going into labor and deciding, nope, not going to have the baby. Nope, not going to do it, not going to have the baby. Right? Good luck with that. Right? Once labor has begun, once the process of birth has begun, something is going to be birthed. You can resist it all you want. You can declare you're not going to give birth, but trust me, you are. And you will either give birth and nurture your idea, or you will give birth and abandon your idea. But you will birth it because it's yours to birth, and the labor has already started. And so I invite you, open up. Embrace the unknown. Trust that your nature is divinity. And what you think is your human nature that is arguing with your divinity is just fear that is waiting to be birthed into faith. And so have a conversation with that part of you that's afraid. Talk to it like you would a child that you love. I get it, you're scared. Tell me what you're afraid of. Why do I ask that part of me to tell me what it's afraid of? Because there's the juice on what I need to change in my consciousness. I'm afraid of failure. Great. Tell me how you see us failing. Well, we don't have enough money. Great. We don't need money. We are made of divine, infinite power, and all of the money that we need for this to come to fruition already exists, and we just need to step into it, and the money will show up because that's how God works. That's how creation works. What else you got? What else are you afraid of? Right? To have that conversation with yourself, to play it out. And you get to choose. Am I going to surrender to the fear? Or am I going to take a risk? I will leave you with this. There are moments in my household where I literally will stand up from my couch or my computer and turn around to the vacant space and say, you're welcome to sit right here and do nothing, but I'm going to go live life. And then I go about my day. Now, if anybody saw that, they might think I'm a little bit crazy because I'm the only one in the room. But it works because that part of me that's like paralyzed, I can't. Okay, fine, don't. But I'm going. See ya. Right? If I want to act like two people in my head, great. I'm going to embrace both of us. Whatever works, use it. Whatever However works, use it. Just know you are a divine, intentional, purposeful manifestation of consciousness itself, fully infused with all of the power that has ever been available to create anything, lives, moves, and has its being as you. And you get to use it however you want. You just don't ever get to not use it. Be a choice. Let's take this into prayer. And so I simply recognize, I recognize, I know again the one mind, infinite possibility, absolute abundance, creation, begun, continuous, unfolding itself without interruption, without hesitation. Fully infusing its creation with all that it is, surrounding its creation with all that it is. And so I know that I am that. I know that I am a divine idea in the mind of creation itself, in infinite mind, in absolute consciousness. That it lives, moves, and has its being as me. And what is true of me is true of every expression of life. And so all life is mind expressing. And so I speak my word, claiming and affirming, speaking into realization, making real in experience that humanity is awakening to align with the divine nature of its being. No longer restricted, no longer tethered by the lie of human nature. We let that go. And we step into divine nature. And we get about the business as humanity of being that. And as we be the truth of who and what we are, a world for everyone must manifest in alignment with spiritual principle. And so I celebrate. I celebrate that the word spoken is the word done. And so I know it's already done. I don't need to see it to know it. I need to know it to see it. And so I do. And so I let go. Knowing it is already complete, there's nothing more to do other than to release and step into an experience of it. And so I invite you to step into a new experience of you, a new experience of everyone and everything, as we say together, and so it is.